Chris Hogan coming to you live from the capital here in Brisbane, and I'm here with Anna Guenther from PledgeMe. How you going, Anna?
Really, really good. Thank you.
This is actually our third attempt.
We're trying this. So we're trying to do stuff differently this time.
Yeah, not Groundhog Day. Technology, love it.
Not Groundhog Day.
Okay, tell me about PledgeMe. What is PledgeMe?
What is PledgeMe? So I am the co-founder and chief bubble blower of PledgeMe, which is a crowdfunding platform in New Zealand. We do project-based, equity-based, and lending-based crowdfunding. And we've been doing that for almost 6 years now. Equity crowdfunding, we're one of the first licensed in New Zealand to provide it. And we've come to Australia with a hot desk program to try and do equity crowdfunding here.
And I sense a bit of hesitation around the whole, using that word try. So is there some challenges here in Australia?
Well, Australia is amazing. You'll really love rules here. There's lots of levels of regulation that make it really hard for this to be useful for companies yet. So while equity crowdfunding was legalized in September, it's probably not going to be useful for companies for at least another 6 to 7 months, probably longer.
Okay. So, I understand that you've been brought over here on the Hot Desk program and you have a remote workforce. How does that go for you?
Yeah, so it goes really well. I think we've started to really try to be remote first rather than remote friendly. So the idea that anyone can have the flexibility of working from home when they want to or need to. And so that means that we just have some really good processes in place to make sure that we're checking in as a team. And we have some really good processes in place around what we do if we need to ask someone for something. But we also have really good integrations in Slack. So it means that we actually just know what's happening without having to report in. So every time code is deployed, that triggers something that shows up in Slack, so we know that that's been done. Every time a Trello card's been completed, it can show up there as well. So it means that there's a lot of passive information that you're getting if you want it, so you don't always have to be asking for anything. Sort of like you get in a workplace normally where you'd see if someone was doing something, you get that online.
Okay. So with those processes, are they documented processes that have been communicated? How do people, I guess, stay on track or stay within process?
Yeah, I think, you need to have a process just so people know what's expected, but also at the same time, it doesn't need to be like a huge thing or something that's really hard to do. There's some basic rules around how we operate, but obviously there's flexibility if things need to change. But, it's like if it's urgent, call someone. If it's not urgent, make sure that you really clearly explain what you need when you send it to them. If it's something that just they need to know, send it to them. If it's something that more people need to know, put it in a general channel related to that.
Okay. And notifications on or off in channels?
Notifications on, but doing at here rather than at channel is always a good thing, so it doesn't actually ping out unless it's urgent. But then they should just be calling anyways, so yeah.
If you don't know what we were talking about, Slack obviously means you can actually mention somebody's name and they get a notification and that can interrupt their workflow.
Yeah.
So I guess the remote working thing I think is really great because potentially people are more focused on the project at hand and the task at hand and they're not getting interrupted by, hey, can you just come and help me with this? Yeah. But I think the same thing can happen through Slack. So,
and then you have Do Not Disturb on as well if you really don't want to be disturbed. But I think the thing is, it's, you still need those opportunity and spaces to interact with people, either just because there's a set meeting time where you're all calling in or actually physically meeting in person once a year for your team retrospective days. Like, there's times where you do want to be in person, but you don't need to be in person all the time. And if you're setting up a meeting, you just need to be really clear about why. And sometimes the why is just connecting as a team and checking in, but yeah.
Cool. So once a year meetup in person?
Yeah, so we do at least an annual retrospective to check in on how the year went. So we did it this week. I was back in New Zealand for 2 days, and in that, we started like an agile retrospective, good, bad, change, like what was good about the year, what was bad, what we're going to change, and then we go into a lot of different things to help figure out where to next.
Excellent. Okay, so I guess then today's topic and panel that you helped moderate was all about hiring versus outsourcing. And I guess with that, remote workforces, you could be doing either. So what is your preference?
So we typically hire. So everyone that's working for us at the moment is an employee. And we do that because we sort of acknowledge that we want to have people in charge of different areas of the business and have that as an ongoing thing. We do contract when it's either really short pieces of work or skills that we don't need in-house all the time but need sometimes. But for the most part, yeah, we want to have built a business that can actually pay people on an ongoing basis to be completing the work. Yeah.
So one of my mentors, in fact, also CEO of Beach City, Lee Kelson, mentioned to me once about variable costs versus fixed overheads, and how important that is to businesses to obviously be able to scale when when you've got the work and when you don't. So is that sort of what you're talking about when you talk about your contracting work for projects? Yeah. And what size team are you running at a base then?
So there's 7 people working on PledgeMe at the moment, part-time and full-time. And so we want to give people the flexibility of working part-time as well if they're doing other stuff in their lives. We're trying to get better about making sure that means we're not, expecting too much from them all the time. How do you manage the expectations of the team around that? But yeah, I think that is part of it. It's being really clear when do you need to spend money to have someone there ongoing, and when is it actually just short bursts of work that needs to be done around different areas of the business?
Okay.
Yeah. Is it still working? Yes, it's still working.
Cool. And so how do people stay abreast of what PledgeMe is up to?
Yeah, so we're very present on social media at PledgeMe on Twitter, PledgeMe on Facebook. We also do a bit of blogging as well about some of the campaigns that we're working with, or actually just how we operate our business as well. We're about to release a blog on how we did our retrospective day and how that ran. But yeah, at PledgeMe on Twitter is probably the best way to keep across it.
Fantastic. And so with regards to, I guess, the announcements of maybe up and coming capabilities for enterprises here in Australia to utilize PledgeMe, where will those sort of announcements happen? Yeah,
so we're doing that across socials as well as blogging. So there's a blog also coming out about what the changes to the Australian legislation actually mean for companies and how it's going to work. And it runs through both from a legal perspective and an intermediary perspective what's happening, but also like what companies need to think about if they're thinking they want to equity crowdfund, because there's some things you need to do in advance to make sure your crowd is ready and know what's coming, your business is ready, how you're going to communicate with people and all of that.
So apart from equity crowdfunding, crowdfunding in general is still legal in Australia. Yep. And that was not too long ago that actually became legal. Am I right?
Crowdfunding's been around for a while in Australia. So project-based crowdfunding, and internationally it's been around for a while as well now. It's still young comparatively speaking, but equity crowdfunding is the one that was just legalized in September, and that is exciting. So in New Zealand, we've been doing it for 3 years, and we've had everything from the world's youngest equity crowdfunder, Indy Griffiths at 19, raised $50,000 from some of the smartest technical minds in New Zealand to scale his SaaS company, through to a craft beer company, Parrot Dog, raised $2 million in 2 days to build a new brewery. So, there's a huge power in equity crowdfunding when people are buying a piece of the company and then out there selling it because they own it, They're telling everyone to drink this beer or use this SaaS product or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so what are sort of the percentages that they're playing with?
So we don't recommend companies issuing more than 20% of their company in shares. But we've seen, the smallest raise was $50,000, and the largest was $2 million. That's the maximum legal cap in New Zealand, and those are pre-money valuations of anything from, I think the lowest was maybe $500,000 through to pre-money valuation of between 10 to 12 million.
Okay. Interesting. Very good. Well, thanks very much for your time, Anna, and thanks for moderating the panel. We'll be uploading that panel discussion very soon.
And the panel discussion where I completely scared and confused him by changing the format 10 minutes out into the circle that you can see behind us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you dealt well with that.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks.
Cheers, guys.